Well, it looks like I spoke too soon because in this episode we do learn what fairy heart is. So yeah, let's get into the review for episode 13. So unlike most fairy tale episodes, this one actually begins after the events of last episode instead of going with a recap, and the events of this episode kick right off with Zareth carrying Mavis back to the Guildhall. Good start. There's a brief exchange between Precht and Zareth, but it's not exactly the most light-hearted interaction because Precht clearly is concerned about what happened with Mavis. He is he's like, we haven't seen her for over a year at this point, and most people are gone because they're preparing for a festival, and so he took Mavis's place as the temporary guildmaster, which, due to Mavis's state, turns out to be permanent. And the part that really kind of confused me with the way that Zareth is, or the way he acted, at least in this instance, is once he's done talking with Precht, he just drops Mavis on the ground. He's just, I've come to return your master. Drops her on the ground. And, of course, Precht takes exception to this. He's not very happy with the fact that Zareth just threw Mavis on the ground. And all Zareth would have had to say was, she's dead, or something. He could have even said exactly the same thing he said, which is nothing can hurt her anymore. He could have said that, but the way he says it makes it sound as if he was the one who did it, which technically he is, but his demeanor when he says it makes it sound like he did it on purpose. Clearly he didn't do it on purpose, but it's almost like he wants to paint this bad guy facade for himself. I guess he kind of does, though. I don't know. It's just frustrating when I saw that scene. I'm like, he could have said it exactly the same words in a different way and painted an entirely different story. But no, that's not what he does. He makes it sound like he did it on purpose and is just some sort of cold-hearted bastard, which I guess now he is. And one of the funny things that I didn't even think about is the fact that everybody, Precht, Warad, Yuri, they didn't know that they learned magic from Zareth. They just knew that it was a wizard in the woods that they had run into, and they know of Zareth. Clearly they know of Zareth, but they didn't know that that was Zareth. So when Precht asks, what is your name? He says Zareth, and yeah, so how does it feel? I wonder how it feels to suddenly know that you are as powerful as you are, and you know the magic you know because you learned it from a dark wizard, the black wizard of your nightmares, Zareth. Like, that had to have been jarring for Precht, and I guess he never explained that to anybody else, that I guess they wouldn't really want to or need to know, but yeah, that was kind of something that I would love to understand exactly how he felt knowing that. Now, one of the things we do see with Zareth that really kind of lends to my thought that he's trying to paint himself as a bad guy and eventually just kind of believes his own myth, his own hype, is he says that he needs to steal his heart again. And we see tears running down his face. So clearly, a lot of his emotions, at least in this instance, are real, and a lot of his stone-cold facade is an act, at least until he kills the one that he loves. So, yeah. Also, we know now that technically Mavis is kind of dead, but not dead. It's this really weird kind of in-between where she won't wake up, she has no heartbeat, so she's kind of dead, but she still has some residual magic power, and so as a kind of last-ditch effort to revive her, Precht takes her down to a rejuvenation lacrima, or a lacrima which turns into fairy heart, where he puts her in the underground, like the basement area of the guild, which is where she still stays today. But it was used as kind of a recovery lacrima, and he tries everything to recover her, which is how she ends up in that crystal. And during the time that Precht is trying to recover Mavis, we see that he has gained all of this magic knowledge, and he pieces together that the Curse of Hungselum is what's keeping Mavis in the state that she's in, this contradiction of, life and death. And it's kind of interesting because one of the other things I was wondering is that maybe part of the reason why Precht then later started practicing black magic was because he knew so much about traditional magic that, well, he wanted to learn other magic, and I wonder if part of that was driven by his attempts to recover Mavis. I don't know if that's really the case, but it's definitely an interesting theory that I thought of, so maybe that's the case, I don't know. But yeah, he pieces together that it's the Curse of Hungselum. He works fairly tirelessly to try to, bring Mavis back, which doesn't really bear any fruit, though because he realized what was going on, he tells the rest of the guild that Mavis is dead. And that's where we see the grave of the first master on Tenro Island, and why Tenro Island becomes the fairy tale's sacred grounds is because that is where she's buried, and that's also where she was born, where she found the other members of Fairy Tale, or where they found her, rather. All of this stuff. So, I mean, Tenro is still a really cool place, but we know now that the grave, of course, is empty, which we could have probably pieced together for a very long time now because we've seen her in the Lacrima a couple times before this, and we now obviously have seen the grave a couple times, so put two and two together, grave's empty. And then for some reason, while we're in the middle of this emotional roller coaster, she brings up then the fact that Yuri dies, and he dies apparently unexpectedly and I guess young if you piece two and two together. So that's another kick in the balls. And the best part about that brings you even further down is that she brings up the fact that he died not knowing why his wife died. Oh, that's mean, Fairy Tale. That is just mean. And then right after that, we switch back into figuring out what was going on with Fairy Heart, which just kind of shows that little moment with Yuri was thrown in there to just bring us even further down on the emotional roller coaster. And we find out that, I guess due to all the experimentation with Precht trying to recover Mavis, a new form of magic was created, which is Fairy Heart. And to answer the question that I had from last episode, what is Fairy Heart? It's an endless supply of magic, which is pretty cool. It's definitely something I was not expecting it to be, but when they put it into a factor or into a kind of scenario that makes sense, it is actually pretty impressive. So the scenario that they put out there with the ability to have endless supplies of magic was that the Etherion blast that they were using could have been fired many, many, many times, as opposed to just the one time that they used it that took so much magic ability and magic power. They could have fired it as many times as they wanted with something like Fairy Heart, so yeah. Now at this point they're kind of guessing why they want it, why Xerath wants it, and part of the reason why is probably because, or at least their guess is, because he wants to take out Acnologia, and I guess Xerath doesn't have enough magic power to do that himself. I don't know. I would think he would, or at least I would think he would. I don't know. Maybe not. Actually, now that I think of it, because we discover later on that August has so much magic power and so many magic abilities that he may actually have more magic than Xerath, that would make sense that Xerath might not have enough magic power to take on Acnologia, so scratch that. But yeah, so having unlimited magic power is a cool idea, and Happy brings up, well, why don't we just use it? Why don't we just use it instead? And they bring up another good point, or Makarov brings up another good point, of course. They don't want to use it in that way because what if they lose control? They could literally take out tons of, continents. They could possibly rain down destruction without any sort of control. So that shut Happy up pretty quick, which, good. It shouldn't have been a question that was asked to begin with. And real quick, I just want to point out the fact that I am so glad that they are bringing back the original soundtrack from the first initial seasons of Fairy Tail before the studio change, because this next scene uses the original Fairy Tail music, and it is so great. After Mavis pours her heart out to the guild, we have her, feeling as if she is the one to blame, and everybody in the guild is consoling her. You're not the one to blame. It was an incredible scene, and the music alongside it was phenomenal. Because, of course, we have the friendship solves all things kind of theme of Fairy Tail going on, but then we also have this beautiful, emotional soundtrack that just gives you that extra punch, and I love it. God, I love the fact they're bringing this music back. And immediately after that, we have one of my guesses, one of my theories, kind of coming true. It is true, but it's not something we've seen yet, and I'm waiting to see what it is, but I was guessing because he had that bandage on his arm, and I was thinking that maybe something under that bandage was a weapon, a power, something like that we haven't seen yet, and it is. It is something. We don't know what it is. Apparently it's a one-shot technique, it's a one-use technique, and Natsu talks about having it. He doesn't talk about what it is, but he talks about having it, and I want to know what it is so bad, because he says that it should be enough to take on Xerath. I want to know what's that powerful. I want to know what it is. I am so excited to find out what it is, and I'm so happy that I was right in my guess, because, oh my gosh, the fact that it's something that we haven't seen yet, it makes me irritated because I want to see what it is. It makes me excited because who knows what it could be, so we'll have to hold on and wait for that. Oh, and by the way, Marin isn't dead. He's just super small. And yes, I know he's not a member of the Spriggan 12. Thank you for everybody who pointed that out. He's still alive, and he's super tiny, and still a subordinate of the Brandish division of the Spriggan 12. Can we get that straight now? I know that he's not a member of the Spriggan 12. I'm following along. Let's talk about it. So he's still small and basically just subordinate to Brandish as he was before, but in an even worse state. And we see a bit of an interaction between two of the Spriggan 12, Brandish and she called her Mary, and I forget her name. Hold on. Demiria. It says it in the episode. I went back and watched it. It says Demiria, don't yell at me. I'm sorry, I forgot her name initially. Demiria. Interaction between Brandish and Demiria, and they clearly don't get along, but they pretend to. And then as soon as they leave the room, as soon as Demiria leaves the room, Brandish is just like, I hate that cow. So we'll see how that goes. I don't know if maybe Brandish might have, well, I don't know. She seems just very like not caring in a lot of ways, so we'll see what ends up happening. But after that little interaction, we have 7, I think, of the Spriggan 12 all gathered up, and we learn a little bit about each of them. We learn that Invil is called the Winter General, so he might have some ice abilities. Interesting. Brandish, who is, of course, able to shrink and grow islands, and I guess mass in general. Agil, who has control over sand. Demiria, who is a wizard, who we don't know her abilities, and also a knight, kind of similar to Urza, just throwing that out there. They also threw it out there. August, who just looks extremely powerful, like, apparently he knows every form of magic, which is kind of horrifying to think how powerful he must be then. Wall, who's just weird. I don't know what his deal is, other than it said judge on his name tag. Don't know what that means, but we'll see. And then, of course, there's a few others who we haven't met yet, so I will be interested to see what their abilities are. I want to see what each of these, wizards' abilities are, just because we don't know at all. And, well, we know a bit, but, of course, the ones that we don't know anything about, pretty much we don't know anything, and the one who we kind of know is just a guess, based on his name, of course. And I guess after general introductions are done, we just get straight into the fact that Zeref wants to do a full-scale invasion, everybody going in, even though Agio wants to do it all by himself. Zeref wants to make sure that there is no question that he is going to show up and invade, and I guess we're just getting straight into it, and that is right where the episode could have ended, but it didn't. Instead of just ending there, we have a last entry with our favorite dragon slayer who isn't Natsu, and that would be Acnologia. And I don't exactly know what his plan is, but I guess he's ready to go fight because he transforms into a dragon and is ready to leave, and I guess just start wrecking stuff around the continent. And I did point out in the reaction, I do like the fact that he can just shrink into a human form and hide somewhere, because it kind of makes it interesting that, most of the dragons who were around were inside of the dragon slayers, so they could hide fairly easily. And then the dragons that were around before dragons were extinct just were there. They were just massive. But Acnologia is in the interesting position of taking a human form and hiding away, and then turning into a dragon, showing up, and destroying everything in his path. So I do kind of like that piece of the character. I don't know why, it's just an interesting thing to me. And that is where the episode ends, with so much exposition, so much hype, already right there in the episode. And then we also get the preview, which I guess is Fairy Tail prepping for everything before the battle, because yeah, it just looks like we're going straight into the fight, and everybody's preparing for it. Lucy's preparing for it. Gray and Juvia are preparing for it. It's just going to be a massive fight, and I really want to know how these characters are going to handle this new level of threat, because man, oh man. And actually, speaking of threat levels, this actually is a really good kind of use of the first arc leading into the second arc, because we had that entire first arc of Natsu's overpowered, everybody's overpowered, they took out Avatar like it's nothing, and now we have characters who pose an actual threat, and we have an idea now of the scale of their abilities. So good job making sure that the actual character development was made clear. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed watching this review. If you guys haven't watched the reaction yet, the other side, check it there. And yeah, please make sure to like and subscribe. As always, leave a comment letting me know what you guys think. Yeah, apart from that, links are in the description for anything else you might want to watch, and I'll see you guys in the next episode or the next video. Make sure to be there, and have a good one.